Morning, everyone. I trust you are well. This morning's learning is dedicated, firstly, for a Shalema, for Liora Bas Batcha, who's having an operation, as well as for Rivka Bas Leah and all those that are unwell, and in memory of the those that we are saying Kaddish for, Ami Bas Aryeh, Paul Casimir, Yirmiyahu Chib ben Moshe Eliezer, Shlomo Chib ben Moshe Eliezer, Ben Sion ben Yitzchak, Aryeh ben Shimon, Leah Bas Faivo, Avram Mordechai ben Moshe Katner, as well as the Yortzites, Avital Bas Avram Shuni, Liba Yeta Bas Yeshua Leighton, Moshe ben David Dreyfus, Baruch ben Natan Eckhart, Avram ben Yaakov Alevi Cannon, and Moshe Bas Yaakov Romana. We wish everyone long life and good morning to you all. Apologies for the delay. I have to say, you would think to get from up Frith Lane should take, what would you say, Mervyn? 2 minutes, 3 minutes? It probably took 25 minutes today. So apologies, I left him plenty of time to get back, but it didn't quite work out that way. Anyways, let's get on with where we were. And the theme of today is the theme of Chukas, which really is recognizing that there is a limitation to our understanding. We have to understand that we cannot understand. And it's not just with, the statute relating to the red heifer, which we already spoke about it being incomprehensible because of the paradoxical nature, but it's with all aspects of life. Just when you think you've understood something, then there's something else comes along and you don't understand it. And that is really life. There's an amazing story about this, which you may know about in the Second World War. So apparently Senator Kenneth McKellar of Tennessee, he couldn't sleep in the middle of the war, and he was chairman of the Appropriations Committee, and he couldn't understand why he had to approve the administration's $2 billion towards certain unusual scientific research. So he called the Secretary of War, Henry L. Stimson, and he began to shout at him. And he said to him, "Do you honestly expect me to sanction this enormous appropriation without any idea where it is going?" So he'd been asked to sanction $2 billion. We're talking about in 1940, whatever it was, towards some secret scientific research. Stimson kept quiet, and after hesitating for a bit, he finally said, "Can you keep a secret?" And of course he said he could. And he said, Stimson whispered, "We are about to split the atom." McKellar absolutely exploded. He says, "Are you crazy? We're in the middle of a war. We have men out there. They need guns. They need planes. They need ammunition. And you guys are fooling around with some hocus pocus splitting atoms?" Now, of course, it was only months later that McKellar, along with the entire world, learned the power of this seemingly incomprehensible and esoteric exercise when they dropped the atom bombs, which ended the war. And that's sometimes the way it works. I'll tell you a little story, another story, which perhaps will make it more palatable. Good morning, Stan, Alan, Estelle, Martin, and Mervyn, and Caroline, as well as all the others around the world which are joining us belatedly because of traffic on Frith Lane. Anyways, so it goes like this. I was in a seminar on, I think it was Monday, and it was about child play, therapy play, how we can use play in therapy. And the lecturer was is an incredible woman, and we'll discuss her another time. But she told an incredible story. One of the things that you have to do in play is obviously to learn how to play with, with toys, and how to use that to bring out certain conversations with children. It can be exceptionally powerful and therapeutic. Anyways, one of the most important aspects of being a play therapist is having these toys, and she has these toy dinosaurs and and animals and all types of things, right? Anyways, so she told the story that she had a cigarette lighter. She lit a candle on her desk in her therapy room, and she put the cigarette lighter at the other end. Now the candle was sitting on a plate, and the cigarette lighter was at the other end, right? And she went out. Now it was a cheap lighter, and before she knew it, smoke was billowing out of her room. The whole room had caught fire, right? She opened the door, and it was literally, she could hardly see anything, right? It was absolutely, charred. Everything was being destroyed. And she shut the door to contain the fire. And she ran down the hallway, and she got a fire extinguisher, and she tried to unlock it so she could use it. And she didn't manage, nor did a colleague. So they ran out the room. They ran out the building. Now somebody else from another therapy room, not realizing that she had already escaped, wanted to try to go into the therapy room, believing she was in there to save her. They tried the door once. They tried it again. They pushed against it. And for some reason, the door would not open. Okay? They were very frustrated, but there's nothing they could do. The smoke was coming everywhere, and therefore they ran out the building. When they got out of the building, they found, lo and behold, that Dee, her name is, was not in the room. She'd already escaped. So she went back in after the fire had been put out. And actually, you should be aware of this in case any of you know anyone that smokes, is the cheap cigarettes lighter, as she showed us, they don't, when you stop the flame, sometimes they are not made well, they're not very safe, and the gas continues, and that's what happened with hers. It continues to come out. It doesn't close properly, and therefore it caught fire. Anyways, so she goes back into the room, and it's completely, destroyed. Everything's destroyed. And she goes back with her colleague, and her colleague says, when she goes to the door, she just twists it, and it opens, and then she goes in. And her colleague says, I don't understand. It doesn't make sense. I tried this door half an hour ago, and with all my might, I was pushing, I was shoving. I could smell the smoke was everywhere. I could see it was coming out, and I couldn't get in. You just turn the handle. And she said that she realized afterwards, she didn't say God, but she said that something had stopped that door opening at that particular moment in time, which enabled her colleague to be saved. Because had he opened that door and the fire would have come out, he could have gone in the room to think that he could save her. He would have died. And therefore, only in hindsight did they realize that kindness. And she went, and the whole of her life, all of her writing, her books, everything was destroyed. But you know the one thing that survived? Those animals. They were charred, but they were still there. And that gave her hope. And I think it's an incredible lesson that sometimes we are going to see, afterwards, kindnesses, we are able to see and put things in perspective, and sometimes we can't. And it can take years and years for us to have any clarity and perspective. And sometimes we never will get clarity. And that's very much the essence of this week's Torah portion. Moshe finds himself, right? We have the beginning, the red heifer, right? The statute. And then we have Moshe hitting the rock. And Moshe speaks to the rock, and he doesn't get an answer. And he says, well, if it is that I'm speaking to the rock and it doesn't work, it must be that, that I've got to hit the rock. What should Moshe have done at that moment in time? You know what Moshe should have done? He should have kept speaking to the rocks. Hindsight, he realized now his mistake. Hindsight's a wonderful thing. But the answer is that sometimes we have to just do what is being asked of us, exactly what is being asked of us. And at the time, it may seem incomprehensible, irrational, illogical, and unthinkable. And only later on will we have perspective and understand it. So it's a wonderful, wonderful lesson for us in life, because there's stuff that comes up. We all know about it, that we don't get. And it seems unfair. And why have I got such a hard lot? And everyone else seems to be, having it much easier than me. And we don't necessarily understand it at the time. And we have to accept and have faith that, that is the way it is. and that is our beshed at the time. It may be that we see the silver lining afterwards, retrospectively, or it may be that we don't. But we have to recognize, even at the time, that ultimately some good there is, for ultimately all for the good, however difficult it is. And that's a wonderful lesson for us. And we'll continue tomorrow, please God, at 9 o'clock. Apologies for the delay. We'll finish off quickly because I know people have to go and do stuff. We wish long life to all those of Yorkside, in particular Richard. I know you have Yorkside. You're joining us today, along with everyone else. So we'll say the memorial prayer firstly. Adon Olamim Zachoes Nishmois Ami Basari Paul Kasmer Yom Yochib Moshe Eliezer Shlomo Yochib Moshe Eliezer Ben Sion Yitzchak Ari Ben Shemale Bas Fivo Avram Mordechai Ben Moshe Katna Avital Bas from Shoni Libi Yita Bas Yeshua Leighton Moshe Ben David Dreyfus Baruch Ben Natan Eckhart Avram Ben Yaakov Alevi Canon Moshe Bas Yaakov Romana Shal Cholil Amam Ana Balarachamim Daitri Mesesa Kanofech Aliolamim It's Rosachai Shasam Amen. Long life wishes to all. Lastly, for Shlema prayer, Misha Barachov Saint Robins of Yaakov, Masha Aaron Dav Shlomo Yivak Professor Chelim, Yora Baspatia, Rivka Baslea, Sosha Cholisva, Babosha Kolakam is Balim Babulam Babis Kagosh Bogi Malirach Malachem Malakam Fosami Shlakum Fushim Shmaim Lochol, Bemba Sosha Cholisel, Rafois and Nevish Fosagov Hashavos Makarif Amar. Amen. Please God, all being well, traffic permitting, we'll be back 9 o'clock tomorrow and we'll have a full-length version. In the meantime, have a